uncles, cousins, brothers, sisters, friends, paid-off admirers, my astute friend Alejandro, and of course, esteemed graduates. I would like to thank you all for coming tonight. It is my honor and privilege to speak to you tonight on behalf of the graduating class of 2011. 7 years ago, I began to hear stories about a place called Woodland Christian High School from my older sister. It was a place where students traveled into the depths of a cornfield, of all places, to learn about the world around them. It was a place where water and drinkable were never heard together in the same place, and where the gym and commons were but a vast and frozen tundra during the darkest days of winter. It was a school enthralled by the success of a legendary volleyball team, and where a certain vice principal known only as Greybeard ruled the hallways with an iron fist, in tandem with a certain Manitoban classes teacher, of course. When we finally arrived in Woodland in grade 9, many of us were scared and intimidated of the new experiences that awaited us. However, one of the primary strengths of this school is the way that it welcomes and enfolds new people, and Woodland did a fantastic job of making us feel at home. Events like Ninerfest helped us to get to know each other, and students from every grade took the time to make us feel comfortable. As the year progressed, we became accustomed to the routines of Woodland. At first, it seemed strange that someone could view the world in entirely a monochromatic purple. But hey, it worked for Mrs. Restrainer. And since she talked about this phenomenon in French most of the time, most of us eventually gave up trying to understand. Another routine that took some getting accustomed to was the ram joke. You know a man is dedicated to his job when he plots the jokes for his classes while watching the Leafs game the night before. We supported his efforts, even when the joke was something like, "Today we are going to talk about soil, but don't expect me to tell any dirty jokes." Because of you, Mr. Graham, we leave here knowing the best uses for any pun out there. As we moved into grade 10, we were no longer the babies of the school, and the amounts of homework that we would be saddled with in grade 11 and 12 were but specks on the horizon. During this year, friendships formed in grade 9 were solidified and new ones developed. We started to get involved in more activities, and our connections with teachers grew deeper, in some cases, too deeply. Our class, unfortunately, has a reputation for talking quite a bit, and some teachers bore the brunt of this trait. Mr. Coy will probably never forget his back-to-back geography and classes. And Mrs. Arthur will likewise not soon forget the grade 10 English class that was comprised completely of her drama class. All I can say now is that I hope we left you as stronger people. Grade 11 was a year of transitions. The courses got harder, and the amount of work that we had to do for them increased. Though we were still welcoming new people, we were starting to reach a point in our maturity level where we were comfortable with ourselves as a whole class. And a huge reason for that was Woodland's first ever grade 11 winter retreat. This trip, in a way, symbolizes our grade 11 year. On this trip, we were encouraged to step outside of our comfort zones and relate to everyone, and also to lead more. The lines between groups of friends in our class began to blur more on this trip, and during that year, our involvement in school activities became more pronounced. In effect, we were starting to realize the responsibilities that we had as older students at Woodland. The atmosphere that we experienced at the winter retreat is a reflection of the way that the school was positively affecting our development as young people. We arrived on the first day of grade 12. Many of us could not believe that we were starting our last year at Woodland. By now, the friendships that we either had or were starting became a support system through which we drew courage in facing everyday events. Our teachers were becoming advisors and mentors. We enthusiastically supported school events and became role models for younger students as athletes, artists, peer helpers, and student government members. However, through all of this, we were still learning new things about each other. One thing that showed the dark side of our class was the invention of shaming. Brought into this world by our grade 11 history class with Mr. Gosen, shaming was where a group of people would yell, "Shame!" as loud as possibly, while slapping the backs of their hands into their palms. It quickly became the entire school's disciplinary tool of choice for latecomers to class, and even for such gaffes as taking 2 sheets of the same note or accidentally ripping siblings' report cards. It has become so ingrained into our school's culture that when I arrived, barely a few moments late into the gym for my last exam a week ago, the entire school was necessary. I'm sorry. I just get emotional when I think about this. As I was saying, the entire school found it necessary to loudly shame me for my delinquency. I must also explain, however, that in an email that Mr. Gosen sent to me this afternoon, he asked me to explain how we also shamed him. It was a two-way street. Well, this has deeply affected my life. Our class has come to acknowledge the character that this phenomenon builds. Another character-shaping movement has been one that occurs mostly behind the scenes. The growth and maturity that our class has experienced could not have been reached without our teachers. Over the past 4 years, they have been our educators, but also grown into our role models and even friends. Not only have they taught us academically, but through their efforts they have exemplified Christian character. Woodland staff, you have gone above and beyond the call of duty and helped to shape who we are today. We are blessed to have you in our lives, and I know that many of us could not have gone through high school without the academic and also emotional support that you have so graciously given us. Thank you. I would lastly, but most certainly not in the least, like to thank the parents, mom, dad, and every other parent or guardian of young men and women in this class. You have been there since the very beginning. You have supported us through some of the best and worst days of our lives. You had a dream of sending us to a school that valued our development as young people, young Christian people. And I think in many cases, that dream has been realized through the incredible growth that we have experienced. It has been a long road, but I know for many of you it has also been too fast. It is important then that you get the credit you deserve for faithfully and patiently guiding us through this chapter of our lives. In every case, I hope you also realize that you aren't just role models for your own children. You have encouraged, inspired, and supported your children's friends as well, and for that we can never thank you enough. Thank you. Graduates, we are finally here. We have been equipped to enter adulthood with good conscience, responsibility, and hopefully common sense. As a class, I think the investment that we have made into our involvement in school activities is incredible. We were role models for younger students this year, and our engagement with our school has indelibly left a mark on the current student body. We have made so many advances in our personality and skills over our time at Woodland, and I am proud to know each and every one of you. As we move forward into the future, there are some things that we need to take note of. By now, you know that there will be times in our lives where things don't always go well. I know that many of you have experienced situations that have tested your faith and ability to press on. As a group of young adults graduating from Christian high school, how will we handle the more difficult situations in our lives as we leave this place? The prophet Nehemiah has something to say about this. When Israel returned from Babylon, after their exile there, they started to rebuild the wall of Jerusalem, but it wasn't easy. They were surrounded by enemies and under pressure to rebuild their lost home. During this time, Nehemiah 4 verse 10 says that the strength of the burden bearers is failing, and there is too much rubbish. Sometimes in our lives, we feel like the builders of that wall. We feel lost. To paraphrase Cornelius Plotting Jr., maybe God doesn't appeal to us, or maybe we feel guilty beyond forgiveness. Perhaps we are hurting or even depressed. We may have even come to the point where we feel God cannot lift us out of what we are experiencing. Graduates, where we give up, God does not. I know that sometimes it doesn't always feel like that, but Nehemiah promises us something exceedingly encouraging. When the Israelites were at their wits' end, Nehemiah wrote that wherever you hear the sound of the trumpet, join us there. Our God will fight for us. No matter where you are, He will fight to guide, encourage, and love you. My grandmother's favorite Bible passage, Psalm 27, speaks of a God who will shelter you in His dwelling and set you high upon a rock. God will fight for you and extend His grace to you regardless of where you are in your life. One of the ways that God fights for us is by giving us community and friends. So graduates, remember the community and friendships you have made here. Cultivate your existing friendships and continue to make new ones as you move on. But remember, there is positive payback for lifelong friendships. Paul writes in Galatians to bear each other's burdens, because in this way we fulfill the law of Christ. This law is primarily based on love defined by actions. We are therefore called to exist in community with others in order to help them through tough times. So, my friends, since we hope to march onwards into our amazing futures while remembering where we came from, and armed with the knowledge that God really does not ever let us go, I wish you, in the words of T.S. Eliot, not farewell, but fare forward, and God bless. Thank you.